Hey, everybody. Decided to start 2 minutes early just for fun. Just to give the TikTokers a chance to come on. Ooh. Sexy beast. Look out. Oh. What's going on, everyone? Just to reiterate for our recorded audience, we start and then wait a few minutes for folks to join us. That way it gives them time to kind of filter in. Choop. Happy Friday, Kumar. Yeah, I'll start live on here too. Why not? I'll start the TikTok. I will start the TikTok. So yeah, a couple minutes of hanging out, and then we start with the official launch. This is our soft launch. Let me see where the TikTokers are. Amanda, you're first. You did it again. Allison, Jason. I feel like Romper Room. I'm like reading all the names. Hey, Amanda. First, second. Exactly. You're the first. That very good. You're the first, second. Hello, Holland. Hello, everybody. As always, James over at LinkedIn. You're holding up the LinkedIn fort, all one or two of you. If you guys would say where you are from, in case we have any newbies. Actually, it helps anyway. I keep forgetting exactly where everybody's from in any case. But we'll go, maybe not 5 minutes. Maybe today we'll go a couple minutes just to give folks a chance to pop in on TikTok. And then I'll start, and then people can saunter in on their own as we get rolling. Ooh. Oh, man, Ireland. We got storms today here in DC. Always exciting for me and my dog. Hey, Liz. Over at Facebook. Good to see you. And James, you're in Oregon. I did not realize that. Oh, my asthma's bothering me again. I finally did start new asthma medicine, so I promise I won't drop dead in the middle of my broadcast. Oh, Syndicate. I never knew you outed where you lived, Syndicate. I was always careful about saying it because I wasn't sure if you had told people. You never know if people want people to know where they live. And all the TikTokers. Oh, Kumar, you're over there too. You're double tapping here. Oh, I am. I'm going to do a quick little, thank you for my hat. I'm going to do a quick little inhaler, and then we'll get rolling. There we go. Ooh, Quebec and their discriminating language laws. Is Quebec doing more stuff? Are those crazy French up to more trouble? Look out. Hi, Annette. Oh, you're over on Facebook today. I don't remember. Are you always on Facebook, Annette? I'm confused. Don't you normally join the YouTube crowd? We're going to start in a minute or two, folks. I usually like to start a couple minutes after we launch just to give folks a chance to kind of saunter in. Becky in Calgary. I am totally into the music of Depeche Mode. I still am. Love Depeche Mode. One of my earliest loves of sort of progressive alternative music was Depeche Mode, and still is. I think they're fabulous. TikTok turnout could be okay. We shall see. One more puff of my spray, and then we can get rolling. Except I can't play my music long because YouTube may get upset. I will follow. Okay, taking it off so YouTube doesn't get upset. I'm constantly upset that YouTube's going to get annoyed if I'm playing music. Thank you, Maria. I appreciate that. The beautiful little train. All right, guys. I'm going to start explaining now because I worry sometimes that when I let it go till 5 after, we get enough people that maybe some people come and leave. So better to leave, I guess, then we start, because then if folks arrive, then they see what we're doing. So what we do here is we get together. That was I will follow, had to be you two, right? No, you two, or I'm already forgetting. I will follow, had to be you two, yeah. So I am here to talk about the news. We have made this pretty much about Ukraine. I will with that inhaler. It's funny, they never tell me to do it with that inhaler, but I will. A nurse out there is telling me I should rinse my mouth after doing my little asthma inhaler. So I will listen. It is you two. Okay. I'm forgetting these things with my old age. But in any case, so yes, we do a daily news update focusing at this point on Ukraine. If the Ukraine news abates and or if there's other really big news, I do get into that as well. The school shooting in Texas has been big. We talked about that the last few days. I may bring up something on that at the very end, maybe, because there was a one sort of annoying report about it. Oh, I mean, lots annoying about it, but something I'll bring up at the very end. But otherwise, we've got a good amount of Ukraine news today. I will go through the news. I'll tell you the stories I think matter, why I think they matter, and then we will delve into the question and answer. And in order to do that, I've got TikTok folks are here on my iPad. I've got YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. Everybody but Twitter can weigh in. Twitter, you can just watch. Unless you come over on Facebook or LinkedIn, TikTok. On TikTok, my account is simply my last name, Aravosis. Don't be fooled by all the fake accounts. It is simply my last name, Aravosis. You could also go over to YouTube, John Aravosis DC. So you could do that too. And to enter questions on TikTok, use the Q&A box at the bottom if you would. It makes it easier for me because it lists all of your questions in a row that way, and I can go through them very easily. On YouTube and everything else, thank you, NATObot, for that, and Ashley for the roses. On YouTube and everybody else, use the comment box. Bulgaria. Oh, we have somebody from Bulgaria here writing in Cyrillic script. Radoslav Boydzev, I'm going to go with. Radoslav, I can say. Oh, nice to see you, Radoslav. Weighing in from Facebook. I'll put you on the screen so folks see you there. Facebook is probably a quieter crowd there, Radoslav, just so you know. But in any case, folks, so let me dive right in. And I always say, finally, when you do those cute little things on TikTok, I really appreciate it because you're helping me out by doing those. So I will always try to do a quick shout out whenever anybody gives me the funny hat or any of the other crazy stuff. I appreciate it. And on YouTube, when you guys do the super chat or the super stickers are simply your way of saying thank you and making a donation. Super chat is your way of saying thank you and making a donation and throwing in a question. And when you do a super chat question, I always promise I will do everything I can to get to those next. So it'll be sort of the premier question I get to. Part of the reason that's beneficial for you is usually I get around 100 questions total between all the apps we're on, and there's just no way to do 100 questions. So that way I guarantee at least the super chat folks that I will do that. All right, guys, let me just dive right in. So I thought I would start with something at least kind of funny, I guess funny. The Russians started the other day, and at first they were claiming monkeypox came from a secret Ukrainian biolab in Ukraine, right? Well, they went from that to now claiming that the monkeypox is from a secret lab thank you, Cami, a secret lab in Nigeria that is run by the Americans, but has ties to the Ukrainians because we all know about the global Ukrainian conspiracy, Ukraine and all its biolabs in Nigeria. Anyway, I thought it was kind of funny. I constantly, when I hear these stories, I'm trying to figure out who the Russians are going at, and what their target audience is. I can only guess it's their own folks at home, and somehow this works for them. I'm not quite sure how or why, but it does. Delving into the Ukraine news overall, Russia is having some success in the East. We knew this was going to happen. Oh, June. I haven't seen the June one before. Thank you. I guess we are approaching June, aren't we? Russia's having some success in the East. We expected them to. They are pretty close to seizing control of Severodonetsk, which is a key town in the east. It is the easternmost town that Ukraine still controls, okay? The Russians want to get it because they're trying to control all of eastern Ukraine. Eastern Ukraine is divided into kind of two halves. Remember those two kind of fake republics that claim to be independent? The one republic, the Russians now have about 95% of the land. The second one, the Russians have about half of the land, 50%. I believe Severodonetsk is in that first republic of the 95%. The Russians have also captured Liman, another small town, but strategic in the area there. That's the town where they've been using the thermobaric weapons. I showed a couple videos on TikTok of this. The thermobaric weapons, and you'll know it when you see, I understand now because one of the videos I showed before that the experts were saying with thermobaric, people on TikTok were saying, I don't think so. And now I see why you guys were saying that, because finally I did some follow-up videos. The thermobaric weapons are basically called vacuum bombs, among other things. They light the air on fire. They're that bad. They aerosolize some kind of explosive. It literally lights the oxygen and the air on fire. And what that does, if you're in the area, first of all, it sucks the air out of your lungs and can rupture every organ in your body. Bad thing. It also sends out an immense shock wave that also can damage, kill you. Thank you, critters, for that, or criters for that. And the Russians have been bombing Liman with this pretty badly. Unfortunately, it's part of the larger strategy, which we know of, reducing the cities and towns to rubble and killing everybody or getting them all out of there, because that's the goal. Now, having said that, the reports are still that they do not think Russia is going to get very much more than this area in the east. It is still not thought that Russia is going to get the entire east. There are reports that Russia still has this idea of getting Kiev, the capital, like it's still potentially on the plate. But what they were saying in the sources on this, Medusa, I believe, was the one reporting on this. They were saying not that Russia's planning on taking Kiev, but they've got sort of a series of options they're looking at. The least they want is all of eastern Ukraine. And mind you, they don't have that yet, and they're not close to having that yet. The most they want is getting all of Ukraine and getting Kiev. Some Russians are still saying they think they'll get all of Ukraine by the fall, which is crazy, but nonetheless, that's what they're thinking. Now, the other thing, the reason they're saying this is some of the Russian military folks believe that NATO and the U.S. will get bored of this. They'll get tired of spending the money. People at home will get upset and finally say, stop helping Ukraine. And most importantly, and this one does worry me a bit, coming into the fall, as we approach the winter months, will Europe start to feel pressure because of the oil and gas from Russia? Will they start to feel pressure to reach some kind of accommodation with Russia? Let's see. That sort of gets interesting, that question, because it's kind of a chicken and egg question, because it is also hugely important. Thank you, Leash, for that. It is also hugely important for Russia to get the European money that it gets for the oil and gas. So, it's hard for both of them to sort of give up on each other, and we should never lose focus of the fact, or track of the fact, that Russia needs our money as much as we need their oil and gas, or we meaning the Europeans. So just keep an eye on that as the negotiations go. That was it on the Medusa front. Russia is transferring naval, air, and ground forces from Crimea up to Zaporizhia. Now, Crimea, you all know, is that peninsula in the south of Ukraine that the Russians stole in 2014. Remember, they invaded, they stole this peninsula, and they claimed that this peninsula belonged to Russia. It doesn't. The Russians are the only people, thank you, Grandma, for that. Russians are the only people who recognize this as being part of Russia. Well, the Russians reinforced it, of course, with a lot of population, but also a lot of troops. Well, they're starting to move as we said, naval, air, and ground forces up north further so that they can start to reinforce, what they consider their new border. Because remember, what the Russians, I sort of haven't said this in a couple of weeks, one of the Russia's main goals in this whole thing was they wanted to get eastern Ukraine. They already had Crimea in the south, and they wanted to get a land bridge connecting the two, the east to the south. That land bridge includes a lot of land, including the town of Mariupol, which we kept talking about. Now that Russia has that land, and the land goes over, and then you kind of get Zaporizhia, and you get Kherson, which is another town that keeps being talked about. Remember, Zaporizhia and Kherson are the two regions the Russians are talking about annexing and becoming part of Russia. Well, the new border. Because Russia's got this land, and they're afraid the Ukrainians are going to come in and try to push them out, they're starting to move up some of their forces from Crimea to create, in essence, a new border further up so they can defend. As I've been saying all along, what is going to be happening after this battle in the east is a battle for Ukraine to take back its land. And the Russians are going to be on the defense, and they're going to dig in with mines and everything else, and then it's going to be up to the Ukrainians to fight. And anyway, that's what we're going to see next after this, and we're already seeing it as the Russians digging in this area. Teachers, just to give you a little sense of what's going on, I mentioned Kherson. The Russian sort of administrators in Kherson have ordered teachers to go to Crimea for training on how to teach according to the Russian program. Only 20 people from 71 schools came to the meeting where they were demanding this. 21 people from 70, mind you, 70 schools. So you'd imagine each school, okay, at a minimum 5 to 10 teachers, probably more. And they only had 20 people from 71 schools. So again, hats off to the Ukrainians for this. Ukraine is still begging the United States to provide it with the MLRS rocket system. That is the multiple launch rocket system. It has an extended range much farther than artillery. I think I was reading the U.S. artillery that we've now got in Ukraine, and that was my next point I was going to make. Thank you, Carrie. 80% of the U.S. howitzers are now in Ukraine and being used, which is great news. We knew they were there, but we didn't know they were being used yet. 80% are being used, which is great. I believe I read that the American artillery can shoot, thank you, Marcy, like 17 miles or 25 kilometers. Well, these MLRS rocket systems, the reach is, help me out, guys, is it around 150 miles? I remember it being 130 miles, something like that. It's quite far, which would be about 200 kilometers. It's quite a good distance. And the concern the Americans had with providing this system is, if you look at Kharkiv in the northeast, right, Ukraine's second largest city, Kharkiv is literally 10, 15 miles from the border, Russian border. Then you get 10 or 15 miles in and you get the town of Belgorod. Belgorod is a huge supply center, 300 kilometers. Okay, I didn't even, the MLRS system. Is it 300 kilometers? That's way more than I thought. That would be 200 miles. Okay, anyway, find out, argue amongst yourselves and give me the final amount, MLRS. But either way, it can go more than far enough to hit these key Russian cities like Belgorod from Ukraine, because Belgorod is only 10, 15 miles in. So if this thing can go 100, 200 miles, it's easy. And the U.S. is worried that the Ukrainians may use the system to start bombing Russian cities, and then somehow this involves America in the war. I think that's BS, because how hard is it for the Americans to get Zelensky to promise that they're not going to use it, to attack within Russia? Second of all, I feel like, give me a break. I mean, our weapons have been killing Russians from day one, and we're still playing this game of, let's not anger Putin. This is interesting. Okay, so Syndicate is saying, with regards to how far that weapon shoots, 300 kilometers or 186 miles, but when used as a precision strike missile, 500 kilometers or 300 miles. Now, I'm curious what a precision strike missile is versus however else you use it. In any case, I will get to your guys' questions. We don't get to those until I'm done with the news, so that's still going to be about 10 or 15 minutes, okay? So don't worry about it on TikTok. We'll get there. In any case, CNN reported that, now mind you, okay, first of all, these weapon systems are considered a big game changer. So a lot of the military folks out there who support Ukraine really want Ukraine to get these weapon systems. They would be a game changer. The Biden administration is still deciding. They are currently in the process of deciding whether these systems go. CNN had a positive piece the other day, but this is also, and thank you for the ice cream cone, Jessica. This is why I always tell people, when you see a headline somewhere or you see something on Twitter, go and read the story. A Ukrainian supporting news site, I'm going to leave it at that because I don't want to criticize these guys, put out this headline they put out about Biden administration to provide MLRS or something like that. Then I go to the CNN story, and the CNN story isn't as clear, but the CNN story still says Biden preparing to send these weapons. Well, I read the story, and the story doesn't say Biden's preparing to send. The story says Biden is considering it, and they haven't made a decision yet. So always, as far as like your fact checking and all of that, always make sure to kind of go to the story itself, because you can be fooled by this stuff. So thank you for the hat. So is it Setterman? The howitzers, we've got Lithuania. You guys had actually informed me last night, and you were correct, that the Lithuanians are raising money to buy a Bayraktar drone. that they can then, thank you, Samantha, a Bayraktar Turkish drone that they can then give to the Ukrainians. Now, or drones, actually. How much do this is my next Google question for you guys. How much do the Bayraktar drones cost? I believe our kamikaze drones are cheap, on the order of like 10,000 or something. But I wasn't sure. How much is the Bayraktar? Because the Lithuanians are trying to raise 5 million euros. The latest count was they've got 3.3 million euros. Is it 5 million for one Bayraktar? That's what I didn't know. 5 million? Or 5 million euros or $8 million or vice versa? Okay, I didn't realize that. Oh, it's 5 million euros for one. Okay, I thought that was multiples. Okay, that is expensive. Okay, so the Lithuanians are trying to raise enough to buy one Bayraktar for Ukraine, and they've already got 3.3 million euros. And I saw it online. Yeah, Bayraktar. It's the little Bayraktar song that was out the other day by the Ukrainian troops. Anyway, very cool. I just thought that was kind of cool. Now, the other question I would have on the Bayraktar is how many munitions do you get with each Bayraktar? You know what I mean? How many bombs do you get? And what does it cost to buy extra bombs? Just curious on that front. Do you guys know that answer? Out of curiosity? I talk too much. You have no idea how much I talk, Mark Hoffman. You would prefer we all sit here and don't. Is this like you were hoping for a Zen moment? Where we'd all sit and kind of look at each other quietly live? That would be kind of boring. I'm on Google is 2 million euro. What, for the weapons? How much is the actual bomb that gets attached to the Bayraktar? The ammo. That's what I'm curious about. You think it comes with 4 rockets? I'm wondering how much more for additional rockets. That's what I'm wondering. Any case, see what you can find, guys. I will go on, but if you come up with how much, I'm just kind of curious. Oh, the munitions. Hang on. Raymond is saying that the munitions are about. Get my glasses. Is that 200,000? That's not too bad comparatively. So okay, so 200,000 for the munitions. Okay, I mean that's not cheap, but nonetheless, it's pretty cool that Lithuania is doing this. This was a very disturbing report yesterday in the news, and what really worries me about this is this was a report from using Western intelligence as the source. So this was not a source from the Ukrainians claiming this. This was actually the Western intelligence assessment. And they have assessed, and this gets to that issue we've talked about just how many Ukrainians have been basically kidnapped by the Russians, right, and moved into Russia. Western intelligence has concluded as many as a million Ukrainians, and this is Western intelligence, have been basically kidnapped or forced from Ukraine to Russia. The number that they were going towards in terms of the number they think is a good, accurate number was at least several 100,000. I mean, think about that. Several 100,000 Ukrainians at least, and mostly women, children, and the elderly, because they're the ones who are at home, right? The men are off fighting in the war. Some women are fighting in the war too, but it's mostly men fighting in the war. That they've shipped them off to Russia. First, they, thank you, baby, for the hat. First, they sent them through filtration camps, okay? These filtration camps where they try to figure out if they're NZs or what they are. And then, mind you, there is concern that if they find out you're a political activist or something like that, a politician, that they may just kill you, has been the concern. The U.S., or I should say the West, had intelligence reports before the war that Russia had plans to filter out the sort of leadership of Ukraine, the political leadership, including activists, and kill them. That was the plan. So we don't know what they did to these folks. The ones who survived got sent to Russia, and as we've talked about before, they have sent them all over Russia, including to Sakhalin Island in the Russian Far East, which is 10,000 miles. Thank you, Louisville, for that. 10,000 miles from Ukraine. And I mean, 10,000 miles, you're talking 13,000 kilometers, something like that. I mean, horrific. And sometimes, once they drop the person off, they give them a little ATM card, a little money machine card that has a little bit of money on it. Very often, they give them nothing. Nothing. They just drop them off, knowing that the person is so far away from home with no money, they'll never be able to make their way back. I mean, it's really, really just this. What is disturbing about this is you read a report like this, and this is genocide. At the very least, this is cultural genocide. They are moving people with the intent of destroying the Ukrainian state. And they've done this in other countries as well. It's just really bad. I'll move that. Oh, this was interesting too. So a new report from international legal scholars released on Friday says that mass killings, deliberate attacks on shelters or evacuation routes, and the indiscriminate bombardment of residential areas by Russian forces established a genocidal pattern, their words, genocidal pattern, indicating an intent to wipe out a substantial part of the Ukrainian population. And this is what gets sort of so upsetting about all of this. Thank you, Lynn, for that. Is that, if we are talking about genocide, and if we really believe we're talking about genocide, then you've got to help Ukraine out to any extent possible. You've got to err on the side. That should change the balance of saying, oh, we're worried about Russia. Oh, we're worried about Russia taking it as an attack from America. If they're literally doing genocide, then our response has to be way higher. It's any case. I mean, you all know this, but a weird story from the Russian Far East. Speaking of the Russian Far East, 4 regional lawmakers, 4 communist lawmakers, which was also kind of interesting, spoke up and called for the withdrawal of troops from Ukraine, withdrawal of Russian troops. 4 communist members of the legislature of Primorie Krai in Russia's Far East have called on Putin to end the war in Ukraine. Leonid Vasyukevich, one of the members, said at a meeting of the legislature, the state legislature, that Russian troops are suffering heavy losses and failing to achieve a military success. Now, let me stop for one second. What's interesting to me is this is a local politician in the Russian Far East. So we're talking 10 or 11 time zones away from Ukraine, right? I mean, these guys, again, 10,000 miles away from Ukraine. And this guy is already getting news that that they're losing their troops and they're not really winning the war. And that alone is interesting in this story, that message is already percolating out there that far into Russia. I mean, literally the other side of the world, practically. He added that young people who could be of great benefit to our country are dying and becoming disabled. Their appeal, their plea was condemned by the local Communist Party leadership. Only 4 guys, but still interesting. Still interesting to me. Iran appears to be violating the sanctions. Iran is going to supply Russia with car parts and gas turbines in exchange for steel. The Iranian Industry, Mining, and Trade Minister said on May 26th, yesterday, that Iran would use barter trade with Russia to ensure supplies of raw materials for its metals and mining sector. He also said that Iran would need to import zinc, lead, and alumina from Russia. This was a sad story, I guess. I wish more people would watch me too, Babaku, but I appreciate you saying that. I always like to try to Angliski. I see Angliski. I don't know what else you're saying, Sheikh Nadia. Unless I get my phone out and try to transfer. Just for fun, folks. Just for fun. I like to sort of do the little, when somebody's sort of commenting in Russian or Ukrainian, I like to at least pull up see if we can do a quick little, I'll do a quick with my Google Translate for fun. Okay, so learn English now. Well, yeah, if you're, unfortunately, I can't do this in Russian or Ukrainian, so izvinite. A Siberian entrepreneur, Vladimir Fofanov, was arrested for playing the Ukrainian national anthem outside on a piano in Siberia. Again, just to show you, there are still some people protesting. And also, the other point I would make with this is why you should be very careful of any information you're getting out of Russian sources, anybody within Russia, because people are getting arrested for holding up blank pieces of paper. People are getting arrested for playing the piano outside. I told you about the guy yesterday who got arrested in Moscow. Thank you, NATObot, for that. who got arrested in Moscow. He was jogging, and his jogging outfit was yellow and blue, and the police thought it was meant to be the Ukrainian flag. And the guy had to get out his phone and get old pictures of himself in the same outfit, proving that it was just his clothes. Like he owned the outfit before the war, and it was his jogging outfit, right? This is what Russia is doing. Zero tolerance for dissent. There is nobody on TikTok, on Twitter, on YouTube, on Facebook, on any social media. There is nobody with a significant following. And I mean somebody who's got 200 followers, maybe they don't know about. Anybody who's got thousands of followers, the Russians know who they are. And if they're saying anything critical of the war in any way and getting away with it, you cannot trust them. All right, I'm going to let it go, but this is an important thing that you will learn, and working on these issues for years, working on a country and following a country like Russia, but also just working on political issues around the world with oppressive governments. There is no way in hell that Russia's letting anybody broach dissent. And NATOBot's giving me butterflies to calm me down because I'm getting myself riled up here. The final thing I will just tell you about is the quick little news from Texas where we had the school shooting. There was a press conference today by the spokesperson for the Texas Department of Public Safety, I believe it is. So basically, the police, the state police force, this kind of thing. And he says that the reason, this was amazing, the reason when the police arrived and they basically waited an hour before they entered the building. First, there was the police, and then there was a tactical unit, like a SWAT unit that arrived. And even the SWAT, first the police arrived. 15 minutes later, 14 minutes later, the SWAT arrives. And they go for another hour. Basically, an hour after the guy started shooting, the police finally entered the building. But the SWAT people were there for 45 minutes before they entered the building and took the kid out. And they said two reasons. One, the police didn't want to go in there because they were afraid they might get shot and killed. This is what police said. Police knew that children who were 10 years old and 11 years old were getting murdered en masse by a gunman, and they didn't want to go into school themselves because the police feared for their own lives. I don't blame a policeman fearing for his life, but then you shouldn't be a policeman. I mean, you know what I mean? That was the first thing that really pissed people off. That was a story from last night. The story from today is that the reason that the tactical people, the SWAT people, waited 45 minutes to go in. So they waited an hour in total before they went in. They sat outside. Remember, they were threatening to arrest parents because the parents were like, go in there. The reason they waited 45 minutes while this guy was shooting children was because they had determined that he was no longer shooting children. He was barricading himself. Like barricading meaning what you might do in a closet alone or something, right? It was the craziest thing. It was crazy. Elizabeth, Shauna, gotta tell you, that's rude what you just said. So stop it, all right? You can disagree on this topic. Don't make rude comments like that. Really inappropriate. I don't want her blocked or anything, but that's really inappropriate. But anyway, so yes, so they said that basically they thought the guy was barricaded and no longer hurting children, so they didn't need to go in there. Now, mind you, there were not just dead children on the ground, there were actual live children who had been shot who were on the ground. And the police still thought, we don't need to go in, no big problem. Oh, my final point, and I'll let this go. The reason they should have known it was still an ongoing problem, I mean, mind you, the man's inside the building having shot kids and your kids are still there. Clearly an ongoing problem. While after they had decided they didn't need to go in, children were still calling 911 on their own phones. And 911 is the emergency service here in America. You know, when you're in an emergency, the children are on the phone calling, going, please help, send the police, we're being shot at. The kids are begging on the phone. Anyway. This whole thing just drives me up the wall. So anyway, I'm upset about it, but also that came out in a press conference around noon today, and everybody is, even the Texas governor, the Republican governor of Texas, is now livid himself because he says he was lied to by the police. So it's become a much bigger issue. But man, it is any case. And that's it for the news. That is it for the news. So I will jump to question and answer. We've got a good, there we go. We've got a good 45 minutes of doing questions and answers on this stuff. Bingo, exactly. Thank you for mentioning that. It was a demon. Demon. Thank you for mentioning that. Enter the Q&A at the bottom. You guys enter it in the comments. Obviously, as I said, anybody who wants to buy a super chat question, I will get to that first, and I will be forever in your gratitude as well. And let me just go first, and I will look for a TikTok question, since sometimes we get sucked into YouTube. I don't know anything about, thanks for the hat there. I don't know anything about Royal Navy ships going to the Black Sea. Has that been, usually Harvey Kittle, my British source, would be the one jumping on a story like that. Harvey, is there any such thing like that? Royal Navy ships going into the Black Sea? As for Belarus, anything confirmed about the Belarusian army? You know, what we know, thank you for that, was that Mill, I didn't see your, hang on, trying to see your name there. Lost your name. Hold on, I'm going to look so I can thank you there. Okay, I'm not repeating your name. I'm going to call you Butts. Thanks, Butts, for that. Now you got me blushing. I was just waiting for somebody to have a screen name that would be too embarrassed for me to repeat, and we finally have accomplished that. Yeah, where is Harvey? Harvey, I think, is missing us. That's okay. Harvey's allowed a night off. But in any case, Belarus. So Belarus moved their command center further south. Thank you for the galaxy, Butts. I appreciate that. Belarus moved their military command center down further south, and they're basically trying to threaten Ukraine. Now, I don't think anybody thinks Belarus is going to invade, because Belarus, what do they have to gain? I mean, Putin is trying to make them invade, I'm sure, because he'd love another front. I still think Belarus is trying to scare Ukraine so that Ukraine, in order to fully prepare, doesn't have a choice but to move some troops near Belarus just to be safe, just in case Belarus goes crazy and invades. And that way, Ukraine is forced to take 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 troops that it would have had fighting the Russians and send them over to Belarus by the border just in case. And that way it helps the Russians further east. So I still think that's what's going on with Belarus. That's my take on that. I just think he'd be insane to invade. And from what I hear, the guy, Lukashenko isn't terribly popular. So it's not clear how well he would do either if he were to invade, whether people at home would, keep him in power. How is the U.S. Thank you for that, baby. I said that. How is the U.S.'s goals in Ukraine compared to Europe's goals now and long term? Wow. We got into some of this yesterday. First, you've got to define Europe, right? Because Eastern Europe has been way more aggressive than Western Europe has been. The Baltic states, Poland, for starters, right? And frankly, you've got Slovakia has been very aggressively supportive. Romania, I don't necessarily know Romania, what they've been saying, but God knows Duda and the Baltics have been like, boom, right? The Baltics, especially, the Baltics are just little, I always like to say honey badgers, but the Baltics are little honey badgers. They're like, boom. It's an American meme. You have to Google and find out what I'm talking about. So it depends. I think the Baltics, and probably Poland too, would love to truly and utterly defeat Russia, get rid of Putin, and maybe even have Russia dissolve. Who knows? Granted, if Russia dissolves, you could have instability, and maybe they don't like that as much as far as if you're on the border. Then you get to France and Germany, and I think they're the opposite. So then you get to Britain. Britain is probably as aggressive as the Baltics and Poland, right? So they're good. America is less than Britain and the Baltics. Interestingly, I was just reading an article, and I didn't copy it off for you guys, but I was reading it right before this about how the U.S. is going around and saying sort of what our 3 or 4 goals are. And it is, one of them is to hurt the Russians militarily, so they are set back militarily when this war is over. So the Russians are basically weaker militarily, and that's interesting. Thank you for that. Was that Tyson? I didn't see. Oh, nope. That was Tyson. And thank you. So the problem with the U.S. is, let me jump then to the rest of Europe. Then you get France, Germany, and Italy. France, Germany, and Italy, I think France wants to be a little more appeasement-ish, wants to get along. Germany can't decide what it wants to be. Germany realizes they've got to work with Russia, just like the French do. You know, Russia's their neighbor, and whether they like it or not, they've got to work with the guy. Italy feels the same way. I think France sometimes gets a little more appeasement-oriented than the other ones. Germany, to me, is showing a public face that keeps going back and forth. And I don't mean that in a good or a bad way. It's, as I said the other day, it's less, it's not ambivalent. It's some days they're really good, and other days they're not so good. And then the day after they say something really good again, right? And there's this weird battle going on, I think, in the German consciousness and the German political parties that we're seeing sort of come out publicly in some of this back and forth with the German government. So, I mean, I think the U.S., generally speaking, would be more aggressive than Western Europe, but Biden does, to a degree, buy into this whole concept of we can't humiliate Putin. But the only thing that I think is helping Ukraine in this regard, and not having Biden just in his heart of hearts say, you know what, in the end, Ukraine does need to just cede some land, right? Give Russia some land and this will all be over, a la possibly France, a la Kissinger, a la the New York Times, is Biden has this very moral Christian Catholic side of him, and he sees the genocide, and I think the genocide is freaking Biden out in a good way, but I think the genocide is hitting Biden here, and it's making him go, we can't let this go on. That is the saving grace, and the question is whether the forces for good, the Ukrainians and their allies, can play on that side of Biden. But anyway, that's my sense of kind of where things are. Sorry, Raggedy Android. Let me see. Hang on. That went flying by. Raggedy Android. I'm kind of wondering, from what I've read, if the color of the children played a part in the cops' hesitancy. I don't know. She's talking now about the school shooting in Texas. The children were Latino, Hispanic Americans. I don't know, because the thing is, some of the cops, if not all of the cops, were Latino as well. At least from some of the police we've been seeing at the press conferences, some of them were Latino from what it looks like. So I don't know. It's certainly possible. It's certainly possible. How do you say your name? Montel. Oh boy, Montelif? Montel. Oh, Montel. I thought it was Montelif. I thought it was an I. Can the family sue? I don't know. This would be the question of whether the families could sue. Well, there's a couple things here. One, suing the school, and two, suing the police. We had looked into this with, because America has so many school shootings, I had looked into this before with another school shooting. Thank you, Marie, for that. And there is, schools do have an element of protection against lawsuits. I don't remember now how far the protection goes, but there was an element of protection the schools would have, potentially, and it may depend on the state as well. For the police, it depends on state law. It depends on the state law and how much it protects the police. I mean, you would want to sue the police for, okay, well, there you go. David is even saying, no, cops are protected, qualified immunity. Now, David, qualified immunity, what does that mean in that case? Would they have to be grossly negligent, or what's the issue there? And what Sean is saying too, civil court. So Sean, are you saying they could be taken to civil court but not criminal? Or would the qualified immunity also protect them to a degree in civil court? So just looking here, since people wanted to get into this discussion, I don't want to get into this too long and get off the Ukraine stuff, because I know a lot of you came for the Ukraine, but this story is such a big story that I'm assuming for a number of you this is interesting in a bad way. Police have been tried and jailed for murder on duty. Well, actually, we did have that woman that accidentally, thank you, Strand. Remember the cop, the female cop who accidentally shot the kid, and she thought she was using, I mean, I believe her. She thought she was using her taser and she shot the kid. She got 5 years in jail or whatever. I mean, she went to jail. So that clearly was not civil. That was criminal. Now, but the only thing is, let me see here. Sorry. Qualified immunity applies in civil negligence cases. Interesting. But I also don't know. I don't remember what qualified immunity is. Is it gross negligence then for a civil case? But then, now the only thing is, I would wonder in a state like Texas whether potentially, I don't want to get down the rabbit hole too much here, but in a state like Texas, I'd be curious whether the cops also have some protection from lawsuit for criminalism, or not lawsuit, but some protections from criminal liability as well. Thank you, Tiffany, for that. Sorry, looking here really quick. Yeah, I know, Audrey. I mean, Audrey Ann is saying she doesn't feel safe doing her PhD in the US next year. Unfortunately, we've always been a country that's never been as safe. Thank you for that, Patty. I mean, it definitely has. We are less safe. We, generally speaking, are less safe than Europe. And it's something that always kind of amazed me when I was living in Europe, was just how safe you were. We'd walk home in the middle of the night. Amsterdam. Oh my God. I'm walking home with my friends in Amsterdam years ago. And thank you for the galaxy there. Who is that? Slow. Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thank you, you for the galaxy. I'm walking home in Amsterdam, and it's got to be 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And my friends decide to cut through a public park. And I think we even cut through a cemetery, which even creeped me out even further. But I'm like, we're going to walk through a public park at 1 in the morning or 2 in the morning. I'm like, and I remember I even said to my friend, I was like, is it safe? And he was like, of course it's safe. But I asked the typical American question. It's 2 in the morning and you're going through a city park in Amsterdam. Of course you'd ask, is it safe? In America, it wouldn't be safe. But there's just a huge difference. There really is. Paris has its problems, but so much safer. Sorry, Dragana, you were saying Noam Chomsky published an article urging politicians to let Putin save face. That's huge. You wrote, you gave a different icon for Putin. Suddenly everyone is using the expression. What is the expression though? I don't know although that's like a pile of crap. What's the actual expression? Oh, save face is the expression. I thought you meant for Putin. Yeah, I saw the Noam Chomsky stuff. That's just weird. I don't even know what that's about. I think the Noam Chomsky stuff, unfortunately, and you got the Glenn Greenwald stuff. You've got a lot of people on the far left who I don't know. I'm not saying Glenn. I've known Glenn for years. I have no idea what went wrong in Glenn's head. But people like Chomsky and the far left, in the old days, they had an affinity for the Soviets, and they did. And there's some people right now who I'm not going to name who in U.S. politics, they're the same way, and they've always had an affinity for the Soviets. So I wouldn't be surprised if a little bit of that's coming up through Chomsky, and he just can't go to, I give Bernie Sanders major credit for being really outspoken in defense of Ukraine and in defense of the aid package. Because Bernie was a Marxist back in the day. He was a Trotskyite. It was pretty serious back in 1980 or so. And Bernie, though, is not stuck in that. And I give him credit for that. Whereas some of the far left, they're stuck in that, which is too bad. But I thought I saw something like that the other day. He's a piece of work. Thank you, Linda. Let me grab another TikTok question. Let me see. I think, Eastern Ukraine, the question from Nick Pereira is what's going to happen to Eastern Ukraine in the next few weeks. The Russians will probably get all of, Luhansk, right? So the eastern half of the east, the western half of the east, Donetsk or whatever. The Russians may make some advances, but it's not really totally clear. Thank you, Grandma. It's not really totally clear. Because to some degree, too, the Ukrainians are very good at kind of pulling back to let the Russians kind of take over. And then once the Russians get comfortable, then they attack again. So I'm not convinced. I just popped up on your FYP with a video from April. Hey, at least TikTok is showing some of my stuff. I'm not gonna look a TikTok baby a gift horse in the mouth. But I don't see Russia getting the entire East. I think the Luhansk they'll get, and they're going to be digging in. The rest of the East, let's see. And then, as I said, they're going to consolidate their winnings in the South. And then the question becomes Ukraine fighting back. I don't think Russia, there is talk about Russia also trying to come after Kharkiv again. They've been bombing. I just don't see it. I don't see it. Well, that's good, Syndicate. Hey, a broken TikTok is at least right twice a day. I just don't see it. But I think, like I said, where this war is heading is going to be Ukraine trying to get its territory back. But the good part about that is it means Ukraine gets to pick and choose where it wants to fight. And that at least is a good thing. Let me look and see, because it's harder to see the questions on here. 1 second, guys. Just looking for. Does somebody want to explain? It's a good point. Does somebody want to explain who Gnome Chomsky is? I just know him as a very liberal, famed writer. But if somebody wants to say who Gnome is, we can at least tell people on YouTube, and I'll just say it verbally so folks know. There is a lockdown in Salem, Oregon today. Shots were fired near a school, according to Mama Kendra. That's just awful, of course. That's interesting. Oh, that's interesting. James Beeler had a comment on LinkedIn, which is interesting. He's one of our sole LinkedIn watchers. He says, and I'm sure this is American car manufacturers you're saying, James, right? Car manufacturers are de-optioning future vehicles. I'm not sure what de-optioning is. I guess, does it mean like you put down, you want to buy a future car and they are basically wiping it out and saying no more? Are de-optioning future vehicles due to supply chain issues for control chips? Thank you, Jason, for that. Always intrigues me. I never realized, do they put Australia, or is it always Australia, or they actually put other stuff there? I have to pay attention when that thing pops up again. And he says, could similar issues be happening for military systems such as the MLRS, and the backfill timeline is too far for the military to give theirs up? Interesting question. Thank you, Hannah. Interesting question, because if there were a chip problem with some of our military equipment, we certainly would not want to admit that publicly. We would not admit that. Now, you would hope that the U.S. military would get first dibs over the auto industry on chips, but that's a very interesting question. To what degree has the chip shortage hurt? Because we know it's hurt automobiles. But to what degree, thank you, Grandma, to what degree has it hurt the military? And could it be hurting systems like this MLRS or other systems Ukraine wants? But as I said, there's no way in hell that the U.S. military would say, thank you, JR, would admit that, because we'd never want to admit that we can't get the military systems, that basically, we don't want the enemies to know that maybe we're hampered in some way. I'll take this off the screen. Let me grab another TikTok, and then I will go back to YouTube. Well, I mean, I can tell you something. 99 Luftballon is asking how the long-range missiles to Ukraine would change the war. I mean, there's a few things. One, currently, Ukraine's doing a few things. They're using what they can to go after the Russian tanks, whether it's some of the aerial drones they've got, although it's certain aerial drones. Other aerial drones are just for going after personnel because they're not strong enough to take out a tank. And they're using their artillery. Now, the Ukraine artillery, up until now, the Ukrainian artillery was like the Russian artillery, so they would fire at each other, and in order to fire at them, you were in danger of them firing back at you. Now with the American artillery can go farther, so the Ukrainians, in principle, can be in a safe position and fire at the Russian artillery. In other words, the Ukrainians could fire at the Russians like this, but if the Russians fired, they'd end up short. Now, that would happen on steroids with this MLRS system if it could fire a couple 100 miles, because you'd be able to go after, I mean, my God, not just artillery. Again, you could go after some of the command headquarters. You could go after a lot of things that you wouldn't be able to hit because you could safely go after them because it's just like using the drone. I mean, beyond that, I don't know sort of the military analysis of how many they would be getting and literally what that would do. Like, for example, would it change the war in Donbass in the east? Would it change the war in the south? Like, I don't quite know how it applies to that. But, let me just say here real quick. Here we go. The Ukrainians, 57 miles for artillery, though? That sounds awfully far I thought artillery doesn't go that far. That sounds really far for artillery. From what the UK systems are 57 miles. Oh, I'm sorry. You're saying that these are the UK artillery goes 57 miles, and the US is 100 plus. Oh no, you're not saying artillery. You're saying the long range rockets. Is that it, Beleaguered? Which one are we talking about here? Just seeing which one here as people are weighing in on this. Sorry, I'm trying to help you guys chat between the different. I know 99 Luftballons has us all singing the song now. Sorry, just seeing here if anybody's weighing in a little more detail on that. I'd actually like to see an analysis of what the 45 kilometer maximum artillery, but precise. 45 kilometers maximum artillery, but to be precise, 20 to 25 kilometers. And 20 to 25 kilometers is about 18 miles, 16 to 18 miles. 45 kilometers, I'm going to go with 33 miles, I'm guessing, 35 miles. Okay. And then, but that's what I was curious is if somebody could just put up what the Ukrainian artillery is to the British and versus the British and American. And we know, as we said, that the MLRS goes much farther because it goes way far. Yep. Now that's the concern, correct? Magical Photo Miami is saying, can Ukraine shoot long-range missiles into Russia to hit them at home? They can if they get this system. And that's the concern the U.S. has. The U.S. does not want Ukraine using this system to attack Russian cities 50 and 100 miles away. Going to the Ukrainian border and then just hitting the cities because they're afraid then that the Russians would, who knows what the Russians might do in that case. They might react much more strongly than they're reacting right now. So that's the concern. I still think they should get them, and they should make Zelensky promise that literally they're not going to use these to fight into Ukraine, or I would tell the Ukrainians, you are not going to use these to shoot into Russia, or we literally are going to take our own planes and bomb your systems, just to make it crystal clear to the Ukrainians if that's what we're worried about. All right, sorry. Let me equipment already in country. Sure. Let me see. Was there any? See, now we're into the part of the show where everyone's chatting on YouTube amongst yourselves, which is always good, but there are no questions. Otherwise, I've got lots of questions saved up on TikTok. Modern artillery is also advanced to rapidly deployable wheeled and tracked vehicles and precision delivered munitions. Yes. Thank you, Stand. Was it Stand or Strand? Strand, I'm sorry. Strandroning. Interesting name. Interesting. David Newsham is saying he looked at the Ford Lighting all-electric truck. You can't even order next year's model. All are sold out because of chip problems and huge demand. Yeah. No, that's an interesting. I'm actually going to write that down. That's a really interesting question to ask. To what degree chip problems are affecting U.S. military? And again, whether we even know and whether we don't want it to be even public. It's a really interesting question. Thank you. Who was that? That was Blythe. Blythe Mooncat. Hello, Blythe Mooncat. Thank you for that. It's NATO rounds with what they would get with American their older weapons. Okay. All right. I'm going to pull up another. Excuse me here. Now that the weather is back to normal, I'm back to having my allergy attacks again. Should we send tanks? Isn't that the question, Oreo fan? All of this comes down to 99 Bayraktars. That would be kind of funny. Instead of 99 Luftballon, that would actually make a great comedy song. actually. Thank you, Flower Lady. The whole question as to what we should be sending in and whether we should be sending in comes down to what you think Russia is going to do next. I think Russia is bluffing about a lot of things. So I'm not worried about what Russia's going to do next. They threatened again the nuclear war thing came up again. Thank you, Critters and Jason, for both of those. Jason, double whammy. Thank you. Triple whammy. Thank you. The Russians brought up the nuclear thing. Oh, last night's nuclear thing was if we provide the MLRS long-range rockets to Ukraine, the Russians, once again on national TV, were threatening nuclear war. And it's just like, literally, we are dealing with 13-year-old children. That's who we're dealing with. And maybe that's what scares our governments, because they realize that the Russians bluff a lot, but they bluff as if they're children. And we're worrying that maybe we're actually dealing with children. I don't know. But the question of whether they should get those kind of systems all comes down as to whether you think Russia's bluffing or whether you think Russia's going to do some next step, chemical, biological, even nuclear. I think they're bluffing, and I think they need to be destroyed, not the entire country. But I mean, in terms of this war, they need to be destroyed and put back in their place. And I think they're bluffing this whole time. So that's my take. But so therefore, I would be fine with giving them more weapons, but it's going to totally come down to where you think they are. People are having a very long, drawn out discussion about computer chips in cars over on YouTube. Excuse me, my allergies are like, rah. I don't know what's going on with. Good question. I don't know what's going on with Belarus threatening Poland. Again, Poland can wipe Belarus's behind. I just don't get it. All I can think of. Here's the thing. Actually, Dimitri, we did not think Russia was bluffing about the war. Ukraine thought war. No, I mean seriously, because Dimitri's writing, we were also thinking Russia was bluffing about the war, but we in America were not thinking that Russia was bluffing about the war. Ukraine. My friend Vlad in Kharkiv didn't think Russia was bluffing about the war, but he said all of his friends did. None of his friends believed Russia was coming. He had already packed the car and gotten train tickets for his family to get out of Kharkiv. And literally the bombs started falling that Thursday morning, and he already had the car ready to go. It was a day before they were going to take the train. But I mean, so it depends, right? But I would say from an American perspective, we didn't think he was bluffing. I mean, fair point, though. Fair point for anybody who thought he was bluffing, Russia does bluff, though. I think they've been bluffing all along. I mean, first of all, I think we shouldn't compare the Soviet Union with Russia, first of all, because the Soviet Union comprised a lot of people, including the Ukrainians themselves. The Russians like to think that there's some follow-on to the great Soviets, but they're not. They're not. As we can see from just not only how bad their military is, but how bad they've dealt in handling their military. Thank you, Marcy, for that. Let me see what comments you guys are making here. Lots of detailed discussion going on here. Oh, here we go. Sorry, Syndicate, what were you saying? Russia approved a bill raising the age limit. Yes, Russia approved a bill raising the age limit for military personnel to 65. The age limit for military personnel was 18 to 40 in Russia. They raised the age to 65 because they just don't have enough troops, period. Russia was claiming, thank you, Grandma. I always like to bend my head for that thing. Russia was claiming that it was because they didn't have enough specialized troops and they needed senior people with skills. In fact, it's because Russia didn't have enough men, period. They were at least considering lowering the age from 18 to 16, but finally that got called into question and they're not doing it because I guess they realized how bad that was going to look if they did it. But yes, I am aware of that. We invited Russia? I hope we didn't invite Russia. We didn't invite Russia to invade Ukraine. I don't think so. I mean, the thing is what the U.S. was doing, and I think the U.S. did correctly in this. The U.S., one thing Biden did extremely well is we had very good intelligence of what Putin was going to do, and Biden released it strategically so that he was making it harder and harder for Putin to do something bad. He was releasing a lot of intelligence about the Russians doing a false flag, which basically means, setting up some kind of explosions and blaming it on the Ukrainians, things like that. We also knew, by the way, I was reading more about it today. I mean, possibly the biggest victory of the war in some readings, what I was saying, was the Ukrainians defeating the Russians at Hostomel Airport right north of Kiev. And that happened in two things. It happened because the Ukrainians kick ass, but it happened because the American intelligence told the Ukrainians that what was happening, I didn't even know this fully. What was happening was the Russians, this literally was supposed to be a special military operation. It was not supposed to be a war. Putin had the troops on all sides, but it kind of was a bluff. Putin's plan was to send a special operations team into Kiev and take Zelensky, and it would be over. And they were going to use Hostomel, the air base north of Kiev, as their base and use that to bring in a lot of troops. And the U.S. told the Ukrainians, and the Ukrainians, first of all, they got their Air Force out of Hostomel, I believe, which saved a bunch of their planes, but also I don't know the details of how the Ukrainians did it, but the Ukrainians just blew the Russians to pieces at this airport and destroyed the entire thing. And that is why Putin's 3-day special operation turned into an actual war. I think the U.S. intelligence has been very good, and I credit Biden for releasing it appropriately. But also, I was glad to read that Biden actually was giving Ukraine the intelligence it needed. I was glad to see that even at the beginning of the war, Biden wasn't playing games and saying, well, maybe we can't tell Ukraine this or whatever. But, I'm more sensitive being American too, but show to them that it's possible to invade and nobody will defend. Oh, I don't know. I'd be curious. I mean, this is probably a bad place to discuss it because we're doing one sentence back and forth. I don't know. Because I don't think we were saying I hope we weren't saying publicly the Ukrainians were going to get destroyed, but we certainly believed it, Others were showing. All right. But sorry, I'm seeing all the discussions here. Go to another TikTok. Sorry, we'll do Mama Kendra really quick. Can NATO kick Hungary out and let Finland and Sweden in? Hungary seems to be on the wrong side. Yeah, Hungary does seem to be on the wrong side of a lot of things. Now, with NATO, Hungary has been a bigger problem with the EU right now. Turkey is being the bigger problem with NATO because Turkey's the one that's causing problems for Finland and Sweden coming into NATO. Hungary is causing problems for the oil embargo. Thank you, JR. I still wish that crown should be like here. Shouldn't it be like a crown that goes on your head? I'm surprised they don't do that. Right? So for the EU, Hungary's causing problems for the oil. I do think, I'm trying to remember, Hungary's being a pain though, because Hungary also was saying like no more sanctions and this kind of garbage in general, I think. But, it all becomes a question of how much you need them. Turkey is strategically very important, for example. So in the end, we really don't want to be kicking Turkey out of NATO and, pushing them into Russia's lap or whatever. Hungary, I think the concern with Hungary is, it's this country right in the middle of all the NATO countries. Well, practically, or no, it is pretty much that we wouldn't want to lose a NATO country there, and one might hope that keeping Hungary in NATO helps keep Hungary somewhat civil. I had years ago had a conversation with my uncle in Greece, who is a very famous Greek politician. He died a few years ago, like at age 96, but was a very famous Greek politician. I've mentioned him before, but he was the defense minister, foreign minister, UN ambassador, and deputy prime minister under Papandreou, the first Papandreou back in the 1980s, PASOK. And we were having dinner about 10 years ago. I was visiting him at his home by the beach, and I was asking him about Turkey and the EU, because this whole debate about, Greece was stopping Turkey from coming into the EU because of Cyprus and all of this. And I was asking him about that and whether, basically whether we shouldn't just punish Turkey and not let them into the EU. And he was I've got to see, because I think I recorded the conversation. I've got to see if I have it. I wouldn't have said this. I mean, he's gone now. I never mentioned this conversation until now because he was gone. But he told me it was adamant. I mean, it was utterly important that we had Turkey join the EU, because it was the only way. He didn't use the word civilize, but the point was, to maybe I'll use the word tame them, to make them become more like the rest of Europe. That he said it was critically important to have them join the EU, and which I thought was very interesting. And again, with him being, Greek patriot and all of that, but the man was defense minister, and no Greek is terribly a big friend of of the Turks necessarily, but very interesting. Anyway, I just thought it was fascinating. Shauna, is Russia reveling in NATO arguing like this? Oh yeah. Sorry, I say that so quickly, you guys may not have heard. Shauna's asking, is Russia reveling in NATO arguing like this? Absolutely, positively. This is what it reminds me in American politics, and you guys abroad wouldn't have noticed this, but Democrats were trying to pass a number of bills last year, last year now. I'm forgetting my year. And there was there was a smaller infrastructure bill of $1 trillion with a T, and a really big one with $3 trillion with a T. And Democrats were fighting openly with themselves for months over this, but within the party itself. And it looked terrible. And I think it hurt Biden and it hurt Democrats, and it made Democrats look weak. And this is sort of the same thing when we have things like Henry Kissinger, when we have things like the New York Times talking about, how, we need to give up land in Ukraine. The New York Times literally brought up nuclear war. When the New York Times is talking about nuclear war, Russia's going, yes, those Americans are terrified of us, right? All we have to do is, and frankly, Biden at the beginning said, we don't want World War III. We don't want World War III. And also, by the way, I mentioned earlier that the administration was presenting 4 talking points to Europe of what the U.S. wants. One of the talking points is still avoid World War III. Now, I mean, that's kind of obvious because nobody wants World War III, but for Putin to hear us talking about it once again tells Putin, hey, maybe you should try to convince people in the West that World War III is a possibility, because it clearly scares them. And by the way, this goes back to whoever asked me about what Belarus was doing with Poland. I think Putin is just trying to do whatever he can to convince people in the West that, oh, this is such a volatile situation. Who knows what could happen, right? But yes, he loves to see Italy put out a peace proposal that the rest of us hate. He loves to have Zelensky say that Macron was talking about trading land. I mean, and I'm not blaming Zelensky, but I mean, this kind of it shows that we're not, it potentially suggests that we're not unified. I mean, we've been very unified, but those kind of, chinks in the armor are certainly helpful for the enemy. Yeah. It's why also the whole issue of France saying that the other day, the French said there is no way that Ukraine could join the EU for 15 or 20 years, the European Union. Now, some people who pay attention to the European Union, I forgot who it was. Maybe it was you guys here or somebody else told me, and they said, yeah, but that's normal. There's no way, anyway, that you would join the European Union anything other than that quickly. That may be true. But you don't say that in the middle of a war, because in the middle of the war, you're making a concession that goes into what Sean is saying. It sounds like you're saying, oh, we're afraid of the Russians. We would never have Ukraine for 20 years. What you want to say is, we'd consider expediting Ukraine, but Russia, if you really want to negotiate it away at the peace table, we'd consider negotiating. And that's where you negotiate away 20 years and you let Ukraine know privately it would have been 20 years anyway. But we used it to screw the Russians at the negotiating table. So Yes, that is why doing this stuff publicly can be bad. I mean, I will say this. I mean, I gotta see what you. I thought I can see your names. Le Christian. Oh, Premier Christian, maybe. NATO hasn't been unified in years, and the war unfortunately made them notice that. Except that the war has unified us. NATO has been remarkably unified, and I think Putin is at the point where Putin thought NATO was never going to pull together like this. Putin thought that we would never have the extent of the sanctions that we've had, like the banking sanctions. I'll bet you he never thought we were going to do, So, and yes, I saw that the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, now has a TikTok, which I've been meaning to check in. I didn't check that, but I've been wanting to. I do think we've been remarkably unified for this, though. This has been pretty amazing. I will say that. Just seeing. Beep, 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 beep. Beep, 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 beep. Oh, I see. You guys are all having a fight with Dusty. Okay. Oh, it's a fake TikTok. Syndicate says it's a fake TikTok, Diana. Uh-oh. Supposedly he was doing some live thing on it today. You sure it's fake? I know, Ned. Ned is saying on TikTok, some of us are old enough to remember when Russia was the enemy. This is a point that I make a lot, is that, I think for young people today, you are seeing why your parents' generation or older is or was so anti-Soviet. Thank you, Cami, for that. You can see what it was that we went through and who we were dealing with. The Russians, this is exactly what we saw with the Soviets. It was this exact kind of behavior, the war crimes, the lack of respect for human life. But I mean, on a scale, all of our countries have done bad things, and we have over the years. Certainly in the past, but even in more recent times. The U.S. gets into wars, and we do some bad things in those wars. But nothing on the order. We haven't done anything in a long time on the order of the kind of crap the Russians are doing. Mike, I missed your proposal. What did you say? What did you say? I can't read every comment. I try. It's hard because also I try to read the questions too and see the comments, so I can never read all the comments. I'm not seeing it, Mike. I saw you say it's always the same. Other opinions drive me mad. So it ends as a dictator. I don't know. I'm not sure what you said. Not sure what you said. Okay, Dusty, I don't know. What's the... Yeah, keep it nice, Dusty. Okay, so yeah, Mikola and everybody's saying that Zelensky thing seems to have been a fake, so be careful. Be careful with it. We'll look for another question or two, guys, but we're a quarter after, so I'll probably call it quits shortly, and then we'll do our usual just kind of hanging out thing, if that's cool, where we hang out and talk and don't do too much. Let me see here. Boop, 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 boop. Actually, Ukrainian grain fields, Thinker brings up, will Ukrainian grain fields be safe to till? What's interesting with that is the government was saying today that they think like 85% of the fields will be tilled, or 85% of the crop, which I thought sounded like a huge amount. But it sounded like for this year at least, they're hoping things will be okay. Then you get into the question of, next year, and first of all, where those fields even are, who's controlling them, first of all. And then landmines and everything else in the fields, even the Russians aren't patrolling, also become a problem, right? So, who knows? Hang on, remove that. In terms of nuclear weapons use, Putin has to calculate whether this is from Craig. In terms of nuclear weapons use, Putin has to calculate whether Biden, Johnson, or Macron will respond with nukes. Correct. It is a more difficult calculation for him. It's a more difficult calculation for him than what? More difficult for him to calculate? I mean, I think it's hard for us to calculate too, to a degree. I mean, first of all, okay, depending which nukes we're talking about, right? If Putin were to use an ICBM, it's World War III. That's the end of the world if that happens. If you're talking about Putin using battlefield nuclear weapons, that becomes an interesting question. I'm not convinced that we would respond in kind with a battlefield nuclear weapon. I am convinced that if Putin uses a battlefield nuclear weapon, all bets are off at that point. I mean, I don't think we use nukes, but I think at that point we are in the war. And I don't know what that means. I don't know. I mean, at that point, maybe we do. I mean, I've said this before. I think at the very least, you would have a no-fly zone over the parts of Ukraine that are still free. You would have an immediate NATO no-fly zone. You would have absolutely NATO mobilization, on all the borders and everything else. You would, I think Ukraine would get almost any weapon system it wants, even planes, if it made sense and it was safe. Meaning you don't want to give Ukraine systems that you don't want to get in the Russian hands, right? That are just that we wouldn't even give to our normal allies in NATO, for example, or whatever, right? So that I get. But I think it would be a whole other ballgame. But for Putin, well, here's the thing. I hope it's not a difficult calculation for Putin to make, because I think if it's a difficult calculation for Putin to make as to what we would do in response, then he might be willing to do it. We need Putin to think, NATO's going to just F me if I do this. I am going to be so screwed. I don't know what they're going to do, but it's going to be horrific. Now, we also don't know what's going on behind the scenes and what the administration has said to Putin behind the scenes. I mean, for all we know, the Biden administration has called them up and said, you use nuclear weapons in any way, shape, or form, or biological or chemical, and we're joining the war. And you can see, that's all we're telling is we're joining the war, and then you will be fighting America and NATO. And we're not going to tell you what that means any more than what we've just told you. But we need to make it really clear to him. So there's an advantage to strategic ambiguity, as it's called, but I kind of think it needs to be pretty clear, certainly about the nuclear weapon use, even if they're battlefield, even if they're small nuclear weapons. But I think the reaction here would be so horrific if he were to use nukes that it would be. Then Ukraine would become the number one story again. That's the other thing. Ukraine would then become the number one story again as well. It would be that's a disaster for him. Why were the U.S. and U.K. trigger happy to join any other war on the planet, but not this one? Boots on the ground join. I would say they weren't. There's a lot of battles we've ignored. Thank you, Lee. There's a lot of battles. The thing is, you'd have to think, have we had boots on the ground? Syria, things got close. I'm trying to remember what we had in Syria, right? But Syria gets interesting because we did have military men, because the Russians, some of their guys tried, remember their mercenaries tried to kill our guys, and our guys killed 200 to 300 of the Russian mercenaries. That's an interesting question, because in that case, why wasn't there the discussion of, oh my God, nuclear war with the Russians, right? But generally speaking, we don't get involved in every conflict. And that's actually a complaint of a lot of people, is they don't really like the conflicts we get involved in, and then they get pissed off about the conflicts we don't get involved in, that we don't help in Africa. I mean, Africa kind of as a rule, right? We haven't helped anything in years that I can even think of. I mean, that's not totally true. Biden sending more troops to Somalia, things like that. But you know what I mean? We're not doing what we're doing in Ukraine even. But I don't know. I think honestly, when it comes down to it, you've got to do, as a leader, you have to have the support of your own country to do it, first of all. And second of all, it's got to be, let me reverse that. First, it's got to be strategically significant and important for your country. Otherwise, potentially you don't do it unless it's genocide. And then you have a much larger discussion about, the whole issue of genocide in the world order, right? But putting genocide aside, your country has to decide, is it significant for my national security to get involved in this conflict? Then you've got to figure out, I think this was Colin Powell stuff. Then you've got to figure out, can I even make a difference, right? Is there anything I can do to make a significant difference in this conflict, or am I just throwing away money, for example? C, what's the end game? Am I going to be stuck here forever, like we were in Iraq and Afghanistan especially, right? Afghanistan could have continued another 20 years because we were the only thing holding that government up. And then you've also got to consider, do I have the domestic support for it? Excuse me, will I have the domestic support for it? So, it's hard for me to say. The irony is I am very, because I can be very hard line on defense issues for a liberal or whatever I am. Thank you, NATObot. But I also have a human rights streak in me, although it is a realistic human rights streak, but it still is a human rights streak. So that when I see things like Kosovo as an American, I wanted us to get involved, and I was glad we got involved. And to this day, I will defend Kosovo to anybody. When people, the Russian trolls will try to bring up Kosovo. Well, they call it Serbia, of course. The attack on Serbia as an example of America's warmongering. And I'm always like proud of what we did in Serbia, absolutely proud. But it is also not that different from what's happening in Ukraine. The problem in Ukraine is we're dealing directly, thank you, Lamb Chops, we're dealing directly with the country that has the nukes. It's unfortunate, but nonetheless, I still don't go as far as Biden, as far as worrying about the nukes. I think he worries too much about them. Lindsay, were you just saying, oh, thank you. That's very generous of you. Thank you, Lindsay. I appreciate that. What was you? I think somebody was just saying, oh, Melissa, you're just saying another thank you too. Thank you, Melissa. I love this. I just love this spam. My name is Bella James. I'm a hot, sexy, naughty lady. Oh, God. It's like they don't even at least take the time to write in English. What is wrong with you people? A hot, sexy, naughty lady. Okay, you go there, girl. Bella James. A hot, sexy, naughty. Naughty is a word that like a 4-year-old would use in English. Naughty. At least in American English. Come on, trolls. Up your game here. Naughty. Oh, my God. Oh, good night, Lori. Good to see you. Blinken, our Secretary of State, said yesterday, issues with Finland, Sweden, and Turkey will be fixed. I saw that. Yeah. I mentioned yesterday, there was a positive comment from Erdogan's spokesman. I always forget if he's prime minister. He's Prime Minister Erdogan. He's not president. President? You guys confuse me so much with it's so easy when everybody's a president. And then you have a France, for example, which went back and forth on who was more important, the prime minister or the president. That got really confusing too. Like nowadays, nobody cares who the prime minister of France was. But once upon a time, it was a big deal. Anyway, thank you, Grandma, for that, and Samantha. Anyway, yes, yesterday Erdogan's spokesman came out and said there was, I don't want to say significant progress, but there was reason for hope. The only thing that worries me with that is, we always hear about reason for hope from like Erdogan's people. Remember at first when Erdogan said this and everybody was like, oh my God. And then the next day his staff went, no. We're not gonna actually stop them from joining NATO. And then Erdogan the next day goes, of course we're gonna stop them from joining NATO. So I worry sometimes as to what Erdogan's staff says versus what Erdogan says. But yes, there was a positive move yesterday. Thank you, Lisa. Reportedly, it was about the arms embargo that Finland and Sweden have on Turkey because of the whole Kurdish issue. So, let's hope. I would hope there's some kind of agreement that's reached, because I just think it's not even just considering Ukraine. I just think it's incredibly significant for NATO's future, for all of our future, for Finland's and Sweden's future. Because honestly, I have friends in Sweden and I always worry about them. I'm like, how do you people think being like independent or whatever the word is going to keep you safe? It's not. The Russians invade you and you're Ukraine. There's nothing to stop them. So Anyway. All right, guys. Oh, got it. 7:26. Okay, it's 26 after, so I'm going to stop. Thank you for that. I can still sit and talk for about 10 minutes anyway, so we will sit and hang. Well, two things. One, tomorrow, I should announce these things throughout. I realized like what time we're doing the next one. Tomorrow, you're right. Recap. Thank you. You're right. I'll do the recap. Tomorrow, we'll do this at 2 p.m. Eastern time, US. So 2 p.m. New York City time, 8 p.m. Paris time. And I'm thinking, I don't want to piss off the Europeans. I'm thinking for next week, I'm going to try 7 p.m. again. Sorry, guys. I don't want to totally piss you off, but I'm still experimenting with what time works. And I'm still getting feedback from some of the Americans that 6 p.m. might be too early because it's 6 p.m. Eastern, which means the entire country's working. But let's see. We're going to work back and forth on that. Let me do a but nonetheless, I know. Well, it's hard. For Monday, I say we do Monday. Unless there's something happening on Monday. Unless I've got like a great barbecue I'm invited to. We'll plan for Monday. I'm doing the weekend anyway. We'll plan for Monday at the usual. Let's plan for Monday at 7 o'clock Eastern US. Okay. That's what we're going to plan for. But you will know anyway, because I will put it on my TikTok as of Sunday night, and I will put it on my YouTube as of Sunday night. And remember, it pops up on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, everywhere automatically when I put it up. So you'll be able to see. Okay. Let's do it that way, and we can try. I'm still trying to juggle this whole issue of American versus European, and it's hard, guys. It's hard to juggle because I'm getting some feedback from you. Because for the Americans, it's tough because it's 6 p.m. No one's home from work, or few people are home from work yet. At least at 7, you get some of the East Coast and maybe Midwest at 6. There's a little bit more of a chance. But in any case, tomorrow we're doing 2 p.m. Eastern. Okay, as always. Thank you. Well, I know. Well, for UK, it's a little easier, but I appreciate what it's like for the Europeans. And honestly, it's been kind of neat being able to have such a mix of people. I've been liking that, but and we've got the TikTok problem, so I don't know whether it helps a little with TikTok, because they've been playing games with my users and everything. Rob, Ukraine is quick to release Russian casualties, but Russia remains quiet about Ukrainian casualties. Is that true, though? Ukraine hasn't been released. UTC, aren't you cute? GMT. I laugh in the face of GMT. 2 p.m. New York City time. Figure it out. 7 p.m. New York City time. Figure it out. That's all I can say. Oh, user BDP from Ukraine. Hello. Everybody give a greeting on TikTok to the Ukrainian visiting us. We always like to shower the Ukrainians with sunflowers on TikTok when you guys visit. So welcome. We're sort of done with the substantive discussion now. We're kind of hanging out now and just talking. I'm not sure what you mean, Rob, because Ukraine hasn't been releasing people. Ukraine's been releasing people in a prisoner swap. You know what I mean? They've already had some prisoner swaps. Remember, because the women got released, like 14 or 15 women or something got released, Ukrainian women, female soldiers. So I'm not sure what you mean. Feel free to, you don't have to buy a question. Feel free to tell me more as a follow-up, but I'm not sure. Syndicate, nobody has the sleep schedule of Syndicate. Let me tell you that. I was feeling bad making Syndicate stay up later, and I was like, all it does is get him an hour closer to his bedtime, which is even closer. Exactly. Sasha hasn't even been now that does mean we run into Sasha's little teeth brushing time, because her teeth brushing is, no, I will admit, I like ending earlier like this. I just worry about the audience and whether it works. And I hate to go back and forth because I like to have a set time, but I still think we might go back in time. I may do 1 month, one in the other. Who knows? Thank you, Jason, for the cranes. All 3 of them. We can do coffee time on Monday. Absolutely. I was going to say coffee time tomorrow doesn't work because it's since we're talking at 2 o'clock anyway. But yes, I will try to. My tech setup isn't too much. Well, that's not true. I have a friend come over and he was like, oh my God. But I've got like my speaker for the iPad, my microphone for the iPad. I've got my good speaker, my good microphone for my laptop. I've got to do the recap. You're right. Let me do the recap. And I've got my laptop computer there, which is YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, etc. I've got a nice arm for my phone, but that I use for doing my TikTok videos. And then I've got a really nice, which you can see here, a really nice circular light up, a ring light up there. That's pretty much it. But it's a nice little setup. And I actually do. I have a fabulous mic that I use for podcasting and other things that I don't bring over here, but I could because it's my sexy voice mic, which would be only for the YouTube people. It wouldn't work for the TikTok, but it would be quite a. Like I said, it's my sexy voice mic. Oh, hang on a second. A friend is texting me something. Oh, that's funny. All right, yeah. I'll do the recap. So the Russians are claiming that monkeypox. I have been to Kharkiv. Yes, I have. The Russians are claiming that the monkeypox was created by Americans and Ukrainians in a secret Nigerian biolab. It wasn't. Russia is having some success in Donbass. Anyway, they're having greater success, but don't look at them. It's not like they're going to take the whole show. So don't be so worried. But they are going to have some success in the next few weeks. The Kremlin is still thinking of possibly attacking Kharkiv and Kiev. It's still on their possibility list. Russia is moving naval, air, and ground forces up from Crimea in an effort to really make sort of a new border, to strengthen those territories that they've now stolen further north, like Kherson and Zaporizhia. The Ukrainians are pushing the Americans hard to give them the multiple launch rocket system, which is a rocket system that could potentially go for a couple hundred miles. But the Americans are worried because it could reach into Russia. Russia is threatening teachers in Ukraine. Thank you, Holly. Russia's threatening teachers in Ukraine that they need to go for a training in Crimea to learn the Russian way of teaching. Of 71 schools in the occupied territories, only 20 people showed up for the Russian meeting about this, which was fabulous. Nearly 80% of U.S. howitzers, which are the really good artillery, thank you, Miss Mickey, which are the really good U.S. artillery, nearly 80% of them are already in use in Ukraine, which is great. Lithuania has crowdfunded 3.3 million euros to buy a Bayraktar Turkish drone for Ukraine. They need 5 million euros to buy it. They've got 3.3 million so far. According to Western intelligence, hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians and maybe as many as 1 million have been forced by Russia to go into Russia and then have been abandoned all over Russia, some as far as 10,000 miles away from the Ukrainian border. 4 regional lawmakers in the Russian Far East called for Russia to end the war and withdraw its troops, which was kind of a surprise. Iran is helping Russia violate sanctions. A Siberian entrepreneur was arrested for playing the Ukrainian national anthem on a piano in public. And then I concluded we talked a bit about the Texas school shooting and how the police said that they decided not to storm the school and instead left the shooter inside for around 45 minutes with these poor kids. 45 minutes because they had decided he no longer posed a threat to the kids. And obviously let's not even start that again. That came out this afternoon in a press conference, and the entire country is up in arms, Democrat and Republican. Everyone is like, are you kidding me? So that was kind of crazy. That is my recap. Yes, thank you, moderators, as always. I don't know what else. Syndicate, you and I need to finally catch up by, we can do it tomorrow, but we need to finally catch up by our messaging too on the stuff and you wanted to talk to me about your suggestion, which I wanted to get more info from you on that, like what you were thinking. Oh, but yes, thank you, everybody, and thank you for thanking me. I appreciate that. My hair is on point today. Just for that, I do. I sort of try to get. I will say I do kind of put water and try to get the hair right before I do the broadcast because who wants to come on these things looking bad? Did Ukraine try to go after the Terminator tanks? Well, hopefully they got some of them. But, oh, Daniel, where you been? Where you been? Yes. Just because you were wearing your Star Trek t-shirt a few days ago, would you admit that The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett are far better? I've not watched them. I started watching The Mandalorian, but I didn't watch long enough to, thank you, everybody. I didn't watch long enough to get into it, and then I stopped. I've got to stop again. I don't even know about the Book of Boba Fett. Okay, see, if these things are this good, then I'm going to have to check them out. Okay. Oh, I'm such a huge Star Trek. And actually, people have told me that they love The Mandalorian. That's true. Mary never got back to me about the shirts. Let me write myself a little note, and I will email her again. I don't want to bother her, but why not? I mean, but it may have been one of those emails that flew by because I even double checked to make sure I wrote her, and I did write her after we had talked that first time. So I've got Mary written down here. I've got to say t-shirts so I know what I'm talking about. Mary t-shirts. Book of Boba. Uh-oh. Look out, Daniel. So Atticon is saying on TikTok that Book of Boba wasn't as good. Yeah, but okay, don't get picky, Syndicate, because if you are a Star Trek fan, it was hard to imagine you wouldn't be a Star Wars fan. I am a fan of both. I am certainly a bigger Star Trek fan than Star Wars fan. Yes. But can I say, hold on, this is going to be my one bit of name dropping for the evening since we're being all Star Wars here. Hang on. My one bit of name dropping. Beep, 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 beep. So I am one of the 924 people that Mark Hamill follows on Twitter. Bam. Still cool because I'm older. I know he's old, but kind of cool in my book. He's been following me for years. I have no idea why. I think it's totally cool. He even retweets my stuff, so he actually reads it, and I'm like, Mark Hamill? When I first thought, I was like, Mark Hamill? Luke follows me, which is very cool, yeah. We've never DM'd or anything, but, because I don't want to bother. I always feel bad bothering people like that, but it's very cool, yeah. But no, I am a way bigger. I mean, I loved Star Wars as a kid, and I still love Star Wars. Star Wars lost me though because the movies just got bad. I watched the first 3 again recently, and the first 2 were great, and that third, I forgot how bad the third was. Oh my god, he liked one of your tweets, and you're like, oh my god, I know, isn't that funny? I know. The thing is, I don't know Mark, so I mean, I could ask him by DM. I just don't know him, so I don't, no harm in asking. I just don't, at least with famous people, and this is probably my flaw, but I try not to sort of impose on them. I don't like to do that, Dragano wanted to be Darth Vader when you grew up. Where are you from? Oh, I'm guessing you're Romanian by that currency. Darth Vader. Is this like a whole Dracula thing? You wanted to be Darth Vader. Oh my God. Dear Lord. Raggedy Man Rusty, that was a rumor that nobody was able to confirm. We think it's Russian disinformation. Nobody was able to confirm it. But I've watched Black Mirror. Several of the episodes were good. Depending on the episode, but it was good. So the new Dune, I rewatched the new Dune on an airplane that I was on the other day. It's okay. It's not bad. I feel like The Witcher's great. I feel like the new Dune is very well done. The acting is good. The Expanse is great. The acting is good, but it almost was too true to the book. I felt like literally somebody had laid out the book and they said, okay, now we're going to do the first chapter. And because you can't do the whole book, now we're going to do the last half of chapter 3. And now we're going to do the first half of chapter 7. It felt like vignettes from the book, but they were vignettes, like the whole thing. explaining the Ben Gesserit. The Ben Gesserit's kind of huge in the book. It's kind of a not much here. Like what's her face, the grandmother or whatever she's called comes, the Reverend Mother, and that's just kind of a weird aside, right? And they've got the voice, but they're not developing it enough. And it's ironic because they broke it into 2 movies or more, but I still feel like the movie needed to get deeper into explaining things, and it's not. That's why. And the music is god awful. If I hear one more, I'm gonna kill myself. There was a review somebody wrote, and he put it on Twitter, and I wrote back to him because he said, if you liked the Dune, then you loved the music. But I found when people didn't like the music, they didn't like the show. And I'm like, I enjoyed the movie, but the music was horrific, and the books are great. What is Becca saying? I sent you a link on Twitter to the video source where people talk about the police in Texas saving their own kids before others. Oh, interesting. Okay. Thanks. I'll check it out. That's interesting. Yeah, because I heard about that, but I didn't know if it was true or whatever. That's interesting. Yeah, we won't give any spoilers. Don't worry. But no, I think Dune is good enough, but the books are way better. And the books are way better. And the movie, I'd be curious, somebody who hasn't read the books, whether they watch Dune and got confused, right? That's any case. It's just a little, yeah. I think they needed to do a better job. But what do you do? But the actors are good. I mean, I think they chose good actors for it, but oh man. Oh gosh, guys. 7:45. Oh. You've not read the books and you weren't confused. That's good. Or maybe you thought you weren't confused because you haven't read the book. I know I saw that Ellen finally ended her show. Yeah. Ellen's like my idol for how to do things. You can be kind of an ass, but try to be nice publicly anyway. That's like my goal in life. I'm trying to be nice publicly, but I don't always succeed. But what do? You love my spot. Well, I'm not sure what that means. Unless you're writing to somebody else. What else? Yep, Ellen. Well, Ellen did. I mean, Ellen, there was all the big blow up and everything else with her. Oh, man. Oh, I'm tired. Syndicate should be a mod. Yes, Syndicate is a mod. Why is he being bossy? He is a mod though. Yawn time. I know I did pretty good. Oh, my apartment. Thank you. Well, and also I told people what's nice too is I've got this this lighting that really throws the blue lighting ends up throwing kind of a cool color around the apartment, which is nice. So it makes it kind of nice for the evening. And we're supposed to get rain tonight, so I've got the curtains closed again to fool the dog so she doesn't know. You can be blunt. Oh, well, I can be blunt too. I love that. You're being blunt with somebody. Are you a mod? Annette, yes, I've been to Khalkidiki only once. When I go to Greece, I like to go to the villages and I like to go to the archaeological stuff. That's and the islands. That's for me. Greece is beautiful water. The islands, the villages. Like I said, I like the small towns and I like the archaeology. I can. Hey, Google, make the shelf light red.
Sure. I've got a recipe called rustic bread recipe.
Hey, Google, make the shelf light red.
All right.
There we go.
Shelf to red.
Yep. Hey, Google, make the shelf light yellow.
All right.
There you go. Well, that's kind of, to you it looks green, but it is kind of green actually. Hey, Google, make the shelf light blue.
Okay.
There we go.
Shelf to blue.
But blue looks better. I tried all the other colors, but the blue ended up, you guys can barely see it. I've tried the other colors, but the blue ended up being a much, hey, Google, quiet. It ended up being
something went wrong for Sonos.
Google can be annoying. But yes, it's the blue ended up being a beautiful color. And it's nice because I did not see Iran with the blue Greek. I'll have to see. It could do purple. Hey, Google, do purple. Hey, Google, make the living room lights. No, sorry, shelf light. Hey, Google, make the shelf light purple.
Changing shelf to blue.
Actually, that's close. It's a little bluer. It's a little bluer here. I know. I don't know what recipe I thought I was asking for. It's a little bluer on here than it is here, but it's not bad. I think the blue just adds it's a little more regal blue too. Like the exactly like, hey Google, make the shelf light blue.
Okay, changing shelf to blue.
Yeah. Yep. And I've got it in my kitchen too, but in my kitchen under the counter, I use it mostly for actual counter lighting because I had this horrible counter lighting that was fluorescent and I hate it. Okay, good night, Annette. Good to see you. It was fluorescent, and finally I installed these lights, and oh my God, I love it. It's funny. I didn't think it is. The blue is very tranquil, and it's wonderful. You know, you can't tell now because I've got a lot of lights on, but when I turn off some of the lights, it ends up being hold on. I'm gonna get even because like I've got the light on in my kitchen just to give me light for the show, which normally isn't on. You know, that alone, and then this light, if I'm watching TV, this light's more like this. Oh God. Hey Google, make the chandelier light warm white.
Got it. Turning on 3 lights.
Hey Google, make the chandelier warm white.
Sorry, I don't understand.
Hey Google, make the chandelier cream color.
Sorry, I didn't understand.
Hey Google, make the chandelier light warmer.
Sorry, I don't understand.
See, this is the problem though. Then, like, I don't know what color to actually call that. But yeah, see, once I do this, what I like is it starts to throw the blue, but the blue almost gets a little red too. And it's this whole kind of other look it gets. There's like a little reddish color that it gets. Hard to tell right now. Now, this is a little dark if I'm sitting here. I would have, well, whatever. But yes. It's pretty, I know Google doesn't know how to, sometimes it gets, I screwed up the light on one of my other lights. I've got to set them back again. But no, the blue is very nice. I've always liked that. And it does, like I said, it just adds a beautiful, just like color for nighttime. So I have it set, turn this down now. Thank you for the corgi. I have it set so it goes on every night, which is nice. So every night, you know, the lights come on, and it just adds it. And then when I say good night, it turns everything off, which is nice too. It turns everything off. I did have a cataract at one point. Yeah. I've already had the surgery in both eyes. Why am I getting a double? Are you getting like the double reflection from my eyes or whatever? And I had a retinal detachment too. Yeah. Well, I've had several little ones and then one bad one. You know, so lots of fun with the eyes. Lots of fun. Oop. Thank you. Anyway, all right, guys. I think I'm gonna sign off here. All right. All right. I'm gonna sign off of. I'm tired. Off of YouTube. I will be back 2 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow. That's 2 p.m. New York time, 8 p.m. Paris time. You guys on TikTok. Once, thank you for joining. Once I see you say your bye-byes, then I will know that you've caught up as well. I know. So your nest. I know. I won't set your nest temperature. I've got one of those too. John's Google struggle. I know. Honestly, I've actually the way I then set the light is I'm going to have to go into here and set it the correct way, my hue, because those chandelier lights. There should be I don't know what color you call that, but clearly that's not the right color. Whatever I called them. Oops, wait, they're on, but the color is hideous. Well, here we go. Oh, well. There we go. Ish. I guess that hopefully is the color. Ugh. Oh, God. What did I do? I made everything yellow. Oh, God. Okay. I'm screwing everything up, making all my lights a mess. Everything turned yellow. Stop. I did a live with Yulia the other day. We'll do another one sometimes, but I've already had 2 with her in the last week. So I've got to find some other people to do. Actually, I do want to find some other people to do lives with. That's I've been wanting to do. So more Ukrainians as well. So I've got to reach out to some other folks. All right, guys. Goodbye, goodbye. Goodbye, 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 goodbye. Boom. Boom. Boom.